Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be venturing into, well, some pretty shadowy corners of Relatos de la Noche. Those listener-submitted stories that really make you wonder, what if?
It's fascinating, isn't it? How these personal accounts, often rooted in everyday life, can tap into our deepest fears, our curiosities about the unknown.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as we were going through this batch of Relatos de la Noche submissions, there's this one common thread that really stood out to us. It's the idea that what we listen to, what we immerse ourselves in, might have a way of, seeping into our reality.
Intriguing, almost like a blurring of the lines between story and reality.
Exactly. And no story illustrates this better than our first one. We have a listener who, along with her mother and sister, experienced some pretty unsettling events after becoming regular listeners of, well, Relatos de la Noche. And it gets even more interesting because this family, they loved a good spooky story, but they weren't exactly, believers, or at least that's what they thought.
It's funny how life has a way of challenging our preconceived notions, isn't it?
No kidding. Now, the mother, she had this gut feeling, almost like a premonition, that maybe, just maybe, they were attracting some unwanted attention by immersing themselves in these tales, especially because of something that had happened in their house years ago.
Past experiences, especially those we can't quite explain, often shape how we perceive the world, don't they?
It's true. And in this case, that past experience, well, was a creepy one. The family had this strange encounter with a woman who kept appearing near their home, just staring at them.
Okay, now that's unsettling. A simple stare can be incredibly unnerving, especially from a stranger.
Tell me about it. And it gets
Yeah.
worse. It escalated from staring to her actually entering their house.
Yeah.
Imagine the feeling of violation, the fear that must have gripped them.
In that situation, it's completely natural for our minds to seek explanations, to find ways to regain a sense of control. Rituals often serve that purpose, don't they?
Exactly. And that's precisely what they did. They performed rituals, used holy water, said
Mhm.
prayers, anything to cleanse their home and reclaim a sense of peace. And you know what? It seemed to work. Things eventually quieted down.
A classic example of how cultural beliefs and rituals can provide comfort, a sense of agency in the face of the unexplained.
For sure. Years pass, and the family rediscovers their love for all things spooky through, you guessed it, Relatos de la Noche. Life goes on, and the past seems, well, distant. Until it wasn't.
Uh-oh. This is where it gets good.
Oh, it definitely takes a turn. Because one evening they start hearing something incredibly strange. Uriel's voice, the host of Relatos de la Noche, seemingly playing out of nowhere. But here's the catch. The sound would vanish whenever they tried to find the source.
A phantom broadcast. That's one way to make you question your sanity, isn't it? It really does make you wonder if it's, your mind playing tricks on you or something more.
Right. And it gets even weirder. Because this isn't just some, random sound they're hearing. It's like snippets of the show, almost as if someone hit rewind on their lives. But then, one night, the mother walks into the living room and, oh man, what she experiences, it gives me chills just thinking about it. She hears their own story, the one about the strange woman being recounted through some unknown source.
Wow, that's a chilling twist. It reminds me of the concept of open doorways in certain paranormal traditions.
Okay, unpack that for us. What are open doorways?
Well, it's this idea that past events, especially traumatic ones, can leave a sort of energetic imprint. Think of it like a doorway between our world and something else.
Uh,
And sometimes listening to or even talking about these experiences can act like a beacon, drawing attention from the other side.
so like an echo of the past, but with a paranormal twist.
Precisely. And it makes you think, even if you're skeptical, wouldn't a story like that make you question what you thought you knew about the world?
I don't know about you, but I'd be sleeping with the lights on. Speaking of unsettling experiences, especially in familiar places, our next Relatos de la Noche takes us to El Salvador. We have a listener who wrote in about visiting her grandparents in this small, peaceful village. The kind of place where you think nothing out of the ordinary ever happens.
Ah, the classic setup for a haunting tale.
Right. It's swelteringly hot, the kind of heat that makes you just want to sleep under the stars. So she decides to string up a hammock in the living room, to catch a breeze. Seems harmless enough, right?
Sounds idyllic. Until it isn't.
And you just know it isn't. Because over the next 3 nights, things escalate. On the first night, she's lying there trying to fall asleep, and she feels this distinct sensation of the hammock moving as if someone large just sat down.
I can already feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up.
Me too. And then This feeling of something running underneath her, like like when your dog runs under the bed, but there's no dog.
Subtle, yet incredibly unnerving.
Exactly. But she brushes it off, figures it's just her imagination running wild in the dark. But the second night, the hammock shaking, it intensifies. And here's the detail that really gets me. She had put on a playlist to help her sleep, over 100 songs, right? And suddenly, the same song keeps playing on repeat.
That's not a random glitch, that's just creepy.
Right. Now, I'm someone who needs background noise to sleep, but that would have me running out of the house. But the third night, that's when things take a truly terrifying turn. This time, it's not just the hammock moving. She feels an actual push, a hand on her shoulder, and this intense cold washes over her. And to top it off, the dogs and chickens outside are going absolutely crazy, barking and squawking like they've seen a ghost.
Animals are said to be more sensitive to the unseen, aren't they? It's like they can sense things that we miss.
Totally. Adds a whole other layer of creepy to the story, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Now, what makes this story even more interesting is that her grandmother confided in her that she'd experienced something eerily similar in that same house, like decades ago. She always believed it was a malevolent spirit, something dark and angry.
It makes you think about how cultural beliefs about the paranormal can vary so drastically. In some cultures, these types of experiences are often attributed to spirits or entities, while in others they might be seen as psychological phenomena or even hoaxes. But the common thread is the power these stories have to tap into our primal fears and make us question the nature of reality itself.
It's like the setting, this small village kind of lulls you into a false sense of security, and then bam, you're hit with an experience that just defies explanation. It's enough to make you wonder what else might be lurking just beneath the surface of our everyday lives.
Exactly. It's like that saying, the world is stranger than we can imagine. And sometimes, those strange, unexplainable events, they find us when we least expect it.
It's true. Certain locations, they seem to hold on to the energy of past events. It's like echoes in time,
Absolutely.
And sometimes those echoes can be, well, downright unsettling. Speaking of unsettling, we have one last Relatos de la Noche to share, the quick one, but it's from a listener who describes herself as a woman of logic, an engineer no less. So, she's not prone to flights of fancy.
I always appreciate a good dose of skepticism. What happened?
Okay, so she's driving home one night in Guatemala, a route she's driven 100 times before. And she's driving along, and her mind wanders for just a split second. And the next thing she knows, she's in a completely different location, miles away from where she should be.
Now that's what I call a detour. Makes you wonder if she accidentally stumbled onto some kind of spatial anomaly.
A spatial anomaly? Okay, I'm intrigued. What's that?
Well, it's a bit of a, fringe concept, but some researchers believe that there are places where the fabric of space-time is thin, where, well, the rules of physics as we understand them, they might not apply. And these anomalies, they could potentially lead to things like sudden teleportation or time slips.
Whoa, like a glitch in the Matrix. So you're saying, like, our engineer listener, she might have accidentally stumbled into, like, a real-life X-file.
It's a possibility, isn't it? Though without more information, it's impossible to say for sure. But what's fascinating is how this story, even without a definitive explanation, it can make us question our perceptions of reality.
It definitely leaves you with more questions than answers, doesn't it? Which I think is what makes these Relatos de la Noche so compelling. They tap into that part of us that loves a good mystery, that wonders if there's more to the world than meets the eye.
Exactly. It's a reminder that the universe is full of mysteries. And sometimes the most unsettling experiences, they're the ones that challenge our understanding of what's real and what's possible.
Well said. A huge thank you to everyone who shared their chilling tales with us for this deep dive into Relatos de la Noche. Remember, the next time you're listening to a spooky story, you might want to keep a nightlight on, because you never know what might be listening along with you, or what might be waiting just around the corner.